Patty, I had just a few minutes ago, Karen Schwartz sent you an email, a question, and I was so late in sending it, and I apologize right before the meeting. But was wondering if you had received it and if you could address that issue at some point in your presentation. It was it was the fact that AB 3088 did not mention anything about no fault evictions, such as
Actually, there is some stuff in there, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
for no fault. I thought it was for just cause is in there. Did I miss?
We're gonna talk about that today. I don't want to confuse anybody, so I just want to make sure that I don't use certain words.
Okay, thank you.
At fault seems to confuse people. Okay.
But mine is called a no fault. Owner move-in is called no fault.
Right. I understand that. And we're not able to do that. We only have 4 reasons of which that we're able to evict for. So I'll talk about that. Okay.
Okay. And then it would be a question of waiting for Garcetti to lift the emergency order until the no fault could be allowed.
Well, yes, you're on the same wavelength I'm on. So that's something that we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
And please ask me your questions as we go along. As you guys have questions, ask them, please, because it helps keep my brain fresh and focused on what we need to have communication-wise here. People are just piling in, folks, so bear with me. I'm still letting them in.
Thank you.
I forget that it's lunchtime for you guys. I'm in Maryland, so I had lunch quite a while ago. And then if you guys have questions, you can either unmute yourself or just type the question down in the bottom under questions. It'll send me a little alert and I'll pick that up. I know some people aren't able to unmute themselves and talk. They just would rather type a question. So please feel free to go ahead and do that as questions arise. And I'll go ahead and get started. If you guys are all ready, I'm ready. So I hope you guys are ready. Things are changing. Yay. I know that when all of this first started back in April, I was telling you guys, wait, hold on. We got a question. What happened to the eviction moratorium? Hold on. We're going to talk about that today. This is what we're talking about. Way back in April, I told you guys, stop trying to figure this out. It is above our pay grades. Okay. As it evolves and as it does whatever it's going to do in the legal ramifications of things, what it's done is it's kind of tried to find its place. And we're seeing that now with Assembly Bill 3088. Things are changing. So that tells me that the state's probably going to open up, you know, maybe one county at a time, maybe one city at a time. I'm here today to tell you there is light at the end of the tunnel. Things are starting to happen. And I know that we discussed that, and I tried to let everybody know they're not going to take us off a lockdown until they have laws in place. Well, now that we're getting, hang on, I'm still adding people to the room. You guys, I'm sorry. Thank you for joining us. If you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them. Today, we're talking about the new changes with the eviction laws and the moratoriums that come about with that, and the new AB 30, I already forgot the number. I think it's 22. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. Want to talk about that. So now we're starting to see new laws be implemented, new things come into play. We're starting to get some of our protections back. Thank you, it's 3088. You guys rock, everybody, for keeping me in order. Thank you. So as nicely as I could say this without causing a whole bunch of hype, I'm not saying the end has happened, it's here, we can do whatever we want. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way out, okay? We are starting to see process and procedures being implemented. Sorry, you guys, I'm trying to let everybody in. People are still joining us. We're starting to see laws come into effect to help placate this out of how it's gonna go out going forward. God love fast eviction service, because you guys call them up, look on their on their website, they have made a template, if you will, okay, explaining the new laws as far as eviction timeline and what we can and can't do and how this has to go. So Fast Evict has made this lovely flow chart for that to help keep us in the know. I have one in front of me, thank goodness, because this is new and it's going to take a while to re-implement in my own brain, okay? Because I've been trained for 30 years to do something one way, and now we're having to make changes. So bear with me, you guys, because I'm making the changes with you, okay? But we got light at the end of the tunnel. I'm so happy about it. So we got new things that are going on. There's 2 dates involved. This has to do with evictions and when we can evict. And I'll tell you this, currently we're still on a moratorium to shelter in place, okay? We're gonna have to have really good teeth in our eviction in order for a judge in a court of law to break that government order to shelter in place. So nuisance, damage to property, health and safety issues, those are all reasons that your legal counsel can help you to evict them sooner rather than later. I believe you have to go in and ask for an ex parte hearing, which is basically an emergency hearing, and get a judge to even hear that. You better have good teeth in your notices. I mean, this isn't something that we want to figure out on our own, you guys. We need our legal counsel, especially right now, because things are new and they're uncertain. And forgive me for saying this, but we all know when something's new, we kind of do it trial by fire. This isn't something you want to learn the hard way. It's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt hard, okay? Especially if you're evicting someone that shouldn't be evicted. So keep that in mind, okay? So as things start to open up, okay, and as municipalities start to remove their restrictions, this is what we have in place for us. Now, I'm not saying this is a saving grace that's going to save all of us, because it's not. But what it's doing is it's giving us a little bit more teeth. It's giving us a little bit more power. It's showing us there's light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, you guys? So we have 2 different dates we're going to have to keep track of for a hot minute. Okay, one of them is rent that's due from March of 2020 to August of 2020. And the other one is rent that's due from September of 2020 to January of 2020. And when they say January, they're talking all the way to the 31st of the month, okay? So with that being said, we do have 2 new, and like I said, fast evictions, God love them, made this great flow chart for evictions to help us see what that's all about. And if you guys need that, just shoot me out an email. I'd be more than happy to send you fast evictions flowchart. They did a great job. I couldn't be happier with it, to be honest with you. And I'm trying to pull it up right now just so that I can share with you what I'm talking about. And of course I can't find it because, you know, I'm a blonde today, but I'm trying. I know where I put it. I found it. I just got to go to my files. Here we go. So they made this lovely, I don't know. Oh, hold on. More people are still joining us, you guys. This is awesome. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but they basically made a flow chart, which is showing us, like I'm saying, the dates over here, which would be March 20th rent through August of 2020 rent. And when I say 20, I'm talking about the year. So March of 2020 through August of 2020, if the tenant fails to pay rent, we can serve them with a 15-day notice along with the tenant's rights information on how to receive COVID-19 hardship benefits and a blank declaration form for the tenant to fill out. We then have to wait 15 days, okay? This is not 15 calendar days, this is 15 business days. It doesn't count weekends and it doesn't count holidays, okay? So basically, if you want me to put this in a nutshell for you, I feel that they took our 3-day notice and turned it into a 15-day notice, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. And I see lots of stuff coming in here. Just bear with me, you guys, okay? And I'll get to it all. So then we have to wait the 15 days. If the tenant returns the declaration, the documentation, and they're a high-income tenant, you know, if they returning stuff to us, we're not going to be able to continue with the eviction. Within that 15 days, if they give us what we're looking for as far as they've been affected, it's financially impacted them, yada, 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 we're going to have to back off right then and there, okay? We cannot evict a tenant for non-payment of rent, for that owes rent from March of 2020 to August of 2020 at this time, okay? The rent can, and I'll get into what happens starting September going forward into what happens from September going forward to January 31st of 2021. If the tenant fails to return the declaration or any of the documentation, the landlord can still file the unlawful detainer, but it's gonna be after the 5th of October, just so you guys know. I mean, these rules in here, they're crazy. There's things we need to know. The tenants are, for rents that are owed from September of right now to January of 2021, the tenant fails to pay the rent, we're gonna have to serve that 15-day notice. We have to wait the 15 days. They do have a loophole in there that if the tenant can't be evicted if they pay 25% of the rent due by January 31st, and the remaining balance can be collected through a breach of covenant contract action after January 1st or January 31st of 2021. So what we're seeing now isn't a game plan for us to turn around and go file an eviction tomorrow. We still have eviction orders in place. Some cities have moratoriums where they've said no evictions till the end of September. Well, if you're in one of those cities, then it may be October 1st when rent's due, that on the 2nd, you're gonna wanna contact your legal counsel to find out what your rights are as far as pursuing the money. But don't call your legal staff on the 1st of the month. And I'll tell you why, it's real simple. The rent is still due. It's not delinquent. They have until midnight, folks. I know it's ridiculous and it's far-fetched, but we need our legal counsel right now more than we ever needed them before, because this is so new. It's got so many moving pieces. It's got lots of moving parts to it, and it's new to us. And like I said, it doesn't mean we have all the answers right now and we got our big fist back, because we haven't. And if that's what you think, you're sadly mistaken. What we're seeing is there's light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe we can pull out of this. Maybe this is all going to start to make sense. Now with these new guidelines, we're able to implement processes and procedures in order to help us with these new guidelines and get through this period, okay? I'm going to tell you right now, if a tenant can prove, and this is me talking to you, remember, I don't give advice, I'm a lot of things, but I'm not an attorney. If the tenant can prove at any time grave financial hardship, and you're in the middle of this eviction process, and all of a sudden they bring all those documents to court, you might as well just you talk to your legal counsel, but they're most likely going to have to dismiss the case. The reason they built this system is to try to keep the honest people honest, and the dishonest people keep doing what they're doing. But there is a genuine need for some of our residents that have been truly affected by this. I know of some personally that have been affected by this, okay, by the whole COVID thing, okay, that have no income because of this. That's the people we need to help. They need help. And we get frustrated, we get angry because we're not getting our money, we're not getting our things. Please remember, folks, contact your lender. Especially right now, if your tenant's not paying you the rent, talk to your lender and see. What I'm learning is a lot of lending companies are adding time to the end of your mortgage. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a 30-year mortgage. Well, you don't pay for 6 months during COVID because you can't, now you have a 30-year and 6-month mortgage. So they're just tagging time on the back of the mortgage of however many months that this is going on, however many months you're borrowing from them, so to speak. But it's all it's doing is extending the amount of time that you owe that mortgage. So don't see a big problem with that per se, other than interest that we all don't want to pay because that's just business. But if you have some kind of tools that you can utilize with your lenders, if you hear about programs, sign up for them yesterday. Do not wait for tomorrow, because once those funds are allocated, they're gone. You can always wait and back out of the program or not completely sign up for it if it has terms that you don't like or that don't work for you. With that being said, run down there, sign up, and if you don't like it, back out, okay? But once those funds are allocated, they're gone. That's it, they're gone. And, you know, a lot of people are saying we may not see a big wall of evictions come as soon as we're able to evict, depending on time. We may be looking at a big wall of foreclosures instead. So we need to be very cautious of our finances right now and how much longer we can hold on to these properties without going upside down. Okay, that's where I need you to focus, not so much on what your tenant can and can't do right now, because things are still a little but the writing's starting to be put on the wall. We're starting to get explanations. We're starting to build processes and procedures. And I'm telling you, by next week, we will have, okay, the process is this, the procedure is this, because this came out on Friday. I've already called Fair Housing twice, and I will be calling them again because I have questions that I want to make sure I'm not telling you to do something that's going to expose you to retaliation or something like that. I can't give you legal advice, but I can help you with a process and procedure. So just want to placate the whole process and procedure, make sure we got that all dialed in before we start implementing it, teaching it to other people, things of that nature. Remember, this is pretty new, and just because this passed on Friday doesn't mean we can file eviction today, okay? Keep that in mind. We can, going forward, under certain circumstances, we are starting to see light at the end of the tunnel, which is great for us because it means we can breathe again, okay? Whew, it was getting scary there for a bit. Didn't know what was gonna happen, but it's nice to see that we're starting to get some guidelines. We're starting to get some rules that are implemented on us. There's a couple of them in particular that I wanna talk about really quick, so just bear with me while I pull that back up, and I'm sorry. So if, and I'm going to read this to you the same way CAA has it, and then I'll translate, okay? If as of September 1st, the tenant has unpaid rental payments that came due between March 1st of 2020 and August 31st of 2020, the landlord must send the tenant additional notice regarding the new law by the 30th of September. So now we have something we have to do again, you guys. We're gonna have to send them declarations regarding the new laws, okay? How that works is, if you never notified them what the law is, how can you implement the law? Make sense? If you never told them you can't do that, then they can do that, right? So we wanna make sure we're disclosing that we're getting those things out to those tenants in particular. So something else we have to do, so mark your calendars. That needs to be done by September 30th with those additional disclosures. If the tenant was served with a 15-day notice to perform covenants or quit, in other words, they're a nuisance on the property. They have different things going on and lease violations. They're breaking terms of their rental contract. Then rent that came due during the covered period of time, the landlord must serve a final 3-day notice to quit for those breach of covenants before filing the unlawful detainer action. I've always tried to do that as a good business practice, is you tell them, hey, you got to fix this or else. Hey, you got to fix this or else. Hey, you got to fix this or else. Hey, you didn't fix this. Now you got to get out. That's your or else. So it's part of the process in my brain. If you're going to serve a covenant notice and then you're going to evict on it, you better have a 3-day quit it there at the end, or it's not going to fly because you never notified them, okay, I'm done giving you chances. We're done here. You're axed, okay? So remember that that also has to be done. And I'm going to read this to you. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? Until February 1st of 2021, no tenant can be evicted unless it's for the following reasons. Did everybody just hear what I said? Until February 1st of 2021, no tenant can be evicted unless it's for the following reasons. Number 1, the tenant was holding over after a lawful termination prior to March 1st of 2020. What does that mean in English? You already got evicted, but the lockout didn't happen. So they've been holding over the whole time. That's the best way that I could explain that to you in English, okay? So that's number one. So a tenant can't be evicted unless it's that, okay? So there's one. We got 4 of these, okay, you guys? If for non-payment, the tenant failed to comply with the declaration procedure, in other words, notifying you of their financial hardship and filling out that declaration. Now, take this as a note. They can still show up in court and provide those documents then, and that would kill you, okay? So it's a risk, I get it, it's a risk. If the landlord has an at-fault reason specified in AB 1482, and they're giving examples of breach of the lease, a nuisance, or refusal to provide access. Those would be reasons that you could evict for covenants broken in the lease. In other words, if they're breaking these rules, where you have a breach of the lease that's a nuisance, a refusal to provide access, meaning you can't get in there, that could be a reason that you could evict. That's reasons we want to call our legal counsel. And then the landlord has a no-fault reason specified in AB 1482, except that terminations based on intent to substantially remodel are not permitted unless it's to comply with health and safety laws. I know. What did she just say? And can she say it again in English? What that means is, unless the landlord, you're not going to be able to do a purchase of a property and tell the tenant they have to get out because the new buyer wants to move in. That's not going to fly until February 1st of 2021 or later. Okay. It's got to be for, and if they're doing a remodel and that's your reason for asking the tenant to leave, is you're remodeling the unit, upgrading the unit, it has to be for health and safety purposes. It can't be just because you want it. Okay, so you're gonna have something where you had a flood, you had a water leak, you may have a mold issue. Those are reasons you're gonna be able to get the tenant out through the AB 1482 and still fly around with that over your head. So again, this isn't saying we're free, we can start evicting again. No, what it's saying is there's light at the end of the tunnel. We have different ways that we can approach things now, and we're starting to see some of the changes come into place. I see a lot of questions coming through, so I'm gonna try to start getting to them. Just give me 2 seconds so I can start reading them. What about owners stating to property management offices that how do they pay our management fees for units not paying rent? Management companies are still managing properties and still providing our services. Ah, I see your frustration. So what you're speaking of usually goes like this. When you hire a management company to manage your investment property, they usually charge you a percentage on rents collected. If you're not collecting rent, then they're working for free. Please remember that. So if no rent's coming in, you're not the only one suffering. That management company isn't getting paid either. Okay? So definitely something to think about. We're not alone in this, folks. Believe it or not, we are not alone. Okay? So just something else to keep in mind is management companies don't get paid unless they have rents coming in. So, and I'm going to guess that nobody had a provision for a pandemic in their management contract, so that doesn't help either. You may want to talk to your owners, see if you can come up with some kind of mutual agreement, see if there's something they can do. You may want to have legal counsel review your management contract in regards to that, and also collecting funds during a course of an eviction. Because a lot of us have in our contract that if we don't collect the rent, we don't get paid. Well, that means the whole time we're evicting, we're working for free. So when we have to work the hardest, we're not getting paid for it. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So you may want to talk to your legal counsel and make some changes in your management contract that help protect you in situations similar to this, like this, where the tenant's not paying, you're not getting paid, but you got to have something coming in. So just a thought, something to think about there. Let me see what our other questions are, and then I know people are going to start talking to me about them as well. What if the tenant is current on the rent, but the owner wants to move back in? Is that a reason they can file eviction? Absolutely, but probably not until after February of 2021. I'm seeing now people that are purchasing properties, and usually non-COVID, just so you guys know, when a property's purchased, you're usually able to serve the tenant notice that the owner of the property wants to move in and they have to vacate. We're not able to do that right now. Remember, we're the last guy on the totem pole. We're at the bottom rung, you guys. And above us are municipalities, there are counties above us, then we have state laws, and then we have federal law. We have a law from up above at the top of the totem pole saying we have to shelter in place. So it's really hard to break that, okay? Even, and I'm going back to my drunk. I know I always use them as an example, but it's a great one. Now, if they're causing a nuisance and running through the hallways naked and screaming COVID's gonna kill us and trying to jump out of 3-story windows, now we may be able to get an emergency order from the court and go in ex parte and get permission from the judge to go ahead and pursue an eviction on these people that are causing nuisances in our properties, that are causing problems in our properties, if we're under the order to shelter in place still. Again, that's a question for your legal counsel. Is what they're doing stringent enough for me to get an emergency order to get an eviction done while we have the government telling us to shelter in place? So with that being said, think about it this way. Non-payment of rent is not good enough for an emergency order. Maybe an emergency to us, but it's not an emergency to the courts, okay? Health and safety issues, a house that's full of mold where the plumbing doesn't work, that's going to be something where the courts are going to step in and push this through just a little bit more. That is other issues that may arise that we're not going to be able to go after. So for us to go in and get that hearing done and make that happen for you guys, just know it's not going to be off something simple and we want our house back. Unfortunately, at this time, a lot of the protections that we have as landlords are not there for us like they used to be, okay? Some of the rules aren't playing in our favor right now either, but we got to play nice. Well, none of us want to get sued right now, and I mean none of us. So what am I saying all about this new AB, oh, I already forgot the number, 3088, I know somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, is there's light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't mean that we can turn around and start throwing people out on their cans tomorrow. It's just letting us know, hey, there are protections, they're coming into place, there are ways for landlords, and I can't encourage you enough. Contact your legal counsel. Know that you're dealing with something called a 15-day notice. And this is important because we know time is money, right? Let's talk about the 15-day notice right now. 15 days isn't 15 days like we want it to be, okay? Unfortunately, it doesn't count weekends, it doesn't count holidays. So when we serve a 15-day notice, we're looking at 3 weeks on a minimum, depending how many weekends are in there and how many holidays are in there. It may take almost the whole month just for that 15-day notice to expire. So again, this isn't, we're running down there with our hair on fire. This is something we need to file and make things start happening. Slow down. Woo. This isn't a race, okay? But we need to approach it gingerly and make sure that we're not exposing ourselves to unnecessary lawsuits, especially with retaliation. I saw a lot more questions come up, so let me pull them up so I can answer them. Hold on. I'd be more than happy to post a link of, FastEvict doesn't have that flow chart on their website. Not a problem. Shoot me out an email telling me that you want it, and I'd be more than happy to send it to you, okay? After the 15 days notice, if they file the affidavit, can I file what they owe in March due to the 31st in small claims court? You can, but they're not going to hear it in small claims court. They're going to kick you right back to eviction court. I got you. I hear where you're coming from. Can I just go this way instead of this way? No, they're trying to funnel us all in the same direction, okay? They're trying to funnel us all in the same direction. I got a feeling in small claims court, if you're asking for rent monies owed during the COVID pandemic, that's gonna get set aside and pushed over anyway right now because they're not dealing with that. This isn't the time to go after that money. And I know we all need it to make those mortgages, but the reality is it's not time for us to show our teeth yet. Okay, we need to be patient just a little bit longer, hang in there, and we'll get it all worked out. It's just now is not the time to go running with your hair on fire. Okay, hold on, I'm still reading questions. You guys are great. Yeah, I wouldn't mess with small claims court and money that's owed during COVID right now. Talk to your legal counsel. I'm sure they'll help you with that. A tenant was waiting assurance of a writ at the time of COVID. He had not paid for 1.5 years non-COVID. No declaration on record regarding COVID. I assume we can go in ex parte and file a writ for the court. Hold on a second. The tenant was awaiting issuance of the writ. Contact your legal counsel because the writ may be issued now that some of the courts are opening up and they're starting to function. So I would contact your legal counsel and find out where you are in the process. You may find yourself coming up on a sheriff lockout date quickly. Just depends on the area you're in and if they're up and running yet or not. After a 15-day notice default is there, a wait time at the court to file a UD complaint. I don't know what you mean by that. Usually everything's done electronically. You file, they either approve or deny, and then they would email you over your case number. Once you have a case number, you're rocking and rolling. And then it's time to go serve the tenant at that point. Not by you, of course. I hope that answers your question. I'm not too sure. After the 15-day notice, yes. So the 15-day notice, I think you're asking, the 15-day notice, you gotta go through, sorry, I'm pushing buttons, you guys. After you file the 15-day notice and that 15 days is expired, you're most likely gonna be able to start the eviction at that point after that 15-day notice expires. Usually it's the following business day. But remember, that 15 days doesn't count weekends, holidays, yada, yada, yada. So we're gonna see that 15 days actually take 3 weeks or longer, just so that you understand. So for right now, our 3-day notices need to be put in a drawer and stuffed away because we probably won't be using those for the rest of the year. Okay, just saying. Hold on, I saw some more questions. Should we send the declaration of past due rents to our tenants, whether they are delinquent or not? Where can we get a copy of the declaration page at? The declaration page is actually a page that would be attached to the 15-day notice to pay rent or quit. And that declaration page is where they say how they've been affected. So they're telling us, they're declaring what happened then and why they can't pay us. That's what a declaration page is as far as that new assembly bill is referring to it. And then hang on. 15-day notice, where can you find one? Fast eviction service, yay! I used to work there, I love them. I don't work for them anymore, but I still work with them. And I'll tell you guys right now, I've been involved in the industry for almost 30 years. I used the top of the food chain as far as legal counsel goes for 10 years. And I met Fast Evict at a trade show one day, and I sat down and I started really talking to them, and I realized, what am I paying for? They all fill out the same paperwork. Why is there such a huge price difference in the beginning? I mean, if we're just filling out the paperwork, so I made the change over to Fast Evict. I used them for 10 years before I went to work for them. And like I said, I still work with them. They're a great company. They do a good job. Without a lawyer, is there a complaint? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on. Is there a compliant 15-day notice and declaration available? I'm sure that as this evolves, and I would say within the next day, I wouldn't bombard them all today because everybody's bombarding all their legal counsel. What does this mean? What are we doing? I want to evict now. Don't we all? I'm sure they already have 15-day notices. They're already made. They're already in their system with the declaration page and the disclosures as far as what tenants' rights are. I would call Fast Evict and I would ask them. I'm sure they would be more than happy to help assist you with that. And I'm sure we're gonna see our apartment associations start to post 15-day notices too. Mind you, this just happened on Friday. So these attorneys gotta do a lot of work, and I mean a lot of work, in order to create those documents, make sure that they have all the proper disclosures on them, that they have all the legal language that's required for it to be a valid notice. So legal teams are really making sure that everything's dialed in, and I'm sure within a couple of days we're going to see quite a bit of those 15-day notices all over the place. I'm sure California Apartment Association, AGLA, I'm sure everybody's going to have their own version of the new 15-day notice, but I wouldn't try to go make that on your own. I wouldn't make that on my own with my experience. Not happening. Okay, so just to recap, today we see light at the end of the tunnel. Doesn't mean we can all run out and go start bashing people's heads in and locking them out of their houses yet, okay? It's not gonna happen, but there is light. We are coming up with process and procedures going forward, how rents are to be collected going forward, how we're gonna have to evict. So now we're starting to see some of those laws come in that we have to change with, that we have to make exceptions for. I think the hardest thing that we're gonna be dealing with until February is a 15-day notice to pay rent or quit. That's substantial. If you throw holiday in there, and example, we're coming up on Thanksgiving. I think we also have a Columbus Day in December. No, that's not in November. I don't know. But we got holidays in there, and that messes us up. The weekends mess us up. We're really going to see that 15-day notice, and I'm trying to tell you guys this so you understand, not taking 20 days, but more like taking 25 days for that 15-day notice to expire. So that in itself is going to be a whole month. Hang on, somebody's asking me a question. Have you spoke about the CDC eviction moratorium yet? No, I have not. And I'll tell you this, everybody has moratoriums. Everybody, the cities, the counties, the states, you know, you're gonna have to go with which one is the most restrictive over you. Because when it comes to restrictions, the restriction that restricts you the most is the one that controls you, okay? I hope that made sense. So we have the nationwide CDC evictions. They're not going to let us just go right out and start evicting people. I do know of some people that were in eviction prior to COVID, had a lockout 2 days, and then COVID happened and the lockout didn't happen. Well, that lockout just happened last week. So we are starting to see the people that were in a holding pattern. I feel so sorry for them. Through this whole time waiting for a sheriff lockout, that's it, and they're done. Those sheriff lockouts, we're seeing some of those being scheduled. We're seeing some of that follow through. We're seeing some of those tenants exit at this point. So again, this isn't changing everything that we're able to do right this second, but it is showing us that there is going to be light at that end of that tunnel. We're going to have to implement changes within the way that we do our process and procedure in order to accommodate these new laws. Okay, if they answer back, I'm trying to, yep, I know, CDC is gonna halt evictions, yada, yada, yada. We're gonna see a lot of municipalities bounce around all kinds of things. And again, we're along for the ride. We're not driving the bus, okay? We're just along for the ride. COVID is driving the bus. If they answer back for the notice from March through August and did not pay anything for September, October, do I need to again do a 15-day notice? If you want to include September and October, absolutely. I mean, every time we're adding to a notice, we want to make sure we're adding to it. Where your problem is for the money that you're asking for from March to August is going to be much more difficult to get them out. Depending on where you are, your municipality has implemented a payback period, if you will, for what they're now calling the COVID rent loan. So from March to August 31st, those rents, they may have 6 months to pay that back. They may have so much time in order to pay that back, depending on your municipality. City of Los Angeles gave 12 months. They have a year, okay? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Don't shoot the messenger. A lot of places are 6 months. Orange County, theirs is extremely minimal, and I mean extremely minimal. So again, we want to check with our apartment associations, check within our municipalities to see what those restrictions are to make sure that we're following them accordingly. LA City and LA County have 2 different ones. Don't get them confused, okay? LA City is one municipality. If you're in LA City, you have to follow their rules. If you're in LA County rules follow. If you're in LA City and you're trying to follow LA County rules because you want to, it doesn't work that way, okay? When it comes to restrictions, so you're in LA City and you don't like their rules, but you're gonna go with the county because they're less traumatic for you, it doesn't work that way. Whichever one's the most restrictive for you is the one that controls. So don't think that just because you're in the city of LA and you don't like their rules, you're going to follow the county of LA's moratorium. The city restricts you more than the county does. That makes sense. Going up that totem pole. So hold on, I got more questions coming in, and then I'll take verbal questions also. So just bear with me. If the tenant pays 25% of September, but then they do not pay for October, then you'd issue a 15-day notice just if it was a 3-day. Okay, as simply as I could say this, it's no longer a 3-day, guys. It's a 15-day every time, okay? Just so you understand. I know, but it's until the end of the year and the end of the month of January, we're looking at 15-day notices for non-payment of rent. That is the easiest way I could explain it to you. Our 3-day is on hiatus for the time being. Okay, for AB 1482 exempt single family homes, what is the maximum rent increases we can give a tenant in the state of California? Is it a 60-day, a 90-day notice of rent increase required for a tenant who's been in a unit for over 12 months? Good question. Thank you, Lee. Okay. When we can raise the rent, okay? Here's how this works. Rent increases sometimes get confused with terminating tenancy. You know, a 30-day notice to terminate tenancy, a 60-day notice to terminate tenancy. And usually that depends on how long the tenant's in there. When you're dealing with rent increases are determined by how much your increase is, okay? So if you increase 10% or less, that is a 30-day notice. If your increase, and I'm going to give you guys a lot of numbers really quick, and mind you, I'm pulling them all out of my blonde brain, so I'm impressed. I don't know if you are. So if you want to increase the rent, and we're going to talk about this because this is going to be a rabbit hole, so stay with me. If you're increasing rents from 11% to 14%, they removed our 60-day notice of rent increases back in January. That now is a 90-day notice. Okay, don't shoot the messenger. Anything 15% or higher is a 120-day notice as far as rent increases go. Okay, everybody get that? 10% or less is 30 days. 11% to 14% is 90 days. There is no 60-day anymore on rent increases. And 120-day notice for 15% or higher. Okay. Also, please take note, we're currently under a state of emergency, so we can't raise rents over 10% or it could be considered price gouging during a state of emergency. That's still hanging over our heads. That's still an order from the municipalities, so it controls us, okay? I'd be really careful about raising rents. Talk to your legal counsel, make sure you're in line, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not raising rents until after February, till all this madness is over with. Haven't heard a lot from the Department of Fair Housing regarding what would be considered retaliation after a global pandemic. I get it. They may still pipe in, so we still have some moving parts that haven't completely landed yet. It's hard to build a house when you don't have everything you need, if that makes sense. I see more questions coming in, so I'm sorry, you guys, I'm trying. Can we start to issue a 60-day notice to terminate tenancy now? No. There's only certain reasons we can terminate tenancy right now, and not all of them, even with AB 1482 in place. We can't buy them out and tell them we want the house back. We can't, there's a lot of things we can't do right now to terminate tenancy. There is 4 reasons that we can, and fast evictions does have those reasons on their flow chart for the, I don't even know what we're gonna call this, you guys, the COVID nightmare. I don't know. Does anybody else have questions? Everybody's quiet. I had nothing from nobody? No questions. You guys can unmute yourselves. We can chat, say hello. I'm in beautiful Maryland. I just ate crab cakes for lunch. Anybody have a question? Oh, thank you. This is my friend Emily's house, and it's huge. I want to say she's probably in about 6,000 square feet. Ginormous.
Oh, I have a question again, and I was wondering what you believe the backup will be in the courts beginning February 1st. I mean, obviously you submit everything electronically, but if you need, for instance, to have a summons, you know,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay, thank you.
And let me paint the picture for you, okay?
Okay.
Help me help you go back a year ago, okay? Everybody, can you rewind your brains to go back to 2019 today, 2019?
When there was a ban on evictions.
There wasn't a ban on evictions. Okay?
Well, no fault evictions, I think.
Well, there necessarily wasn't that. We had a lot of things happen in 2018, 2019, and it came in succession. So let me give you a couple of things that'll make you go, okay, I get it. That makes sense. The court systems went from paper filings to e-filings. So what they did is they said, you can't come in here, you right there cannot come into my courtroom or my courthouse and go into the clerk's office and hand me the paperwork to file a case. You have to do it online. When they did that and made that system, it took a while for all their employees to be trained, for them to work all the bugs out of their systems, okay? I mean, I remember, and this is just me talking out loud because I was at the law firm then, where we'd be rocking and rolling, have everything in order. A writ wouldn't be issued yet because the courts were still trying to figure it out and then catch up and figure it out and catch up. And 2 months have gone by and we're waiting for the writ and the tenant files an answer. Well, now we're going to court because the tenant filed an answer because the writ wasn't filed yet. They even were recalling writs because they were accepting tenants' answers late. It was a nightmare. It logged up the court system. It caused many headaches and financial mishaps to happen to us as owners. Then to add injury to insult, we had those wildfires in Northern California. Well, to help stop the looting and the things that happen from fires and directing traffic, not just all looting, okay, but directing traffic, keeping people away from areas where they could be harmed. What they did was they took our sheriff's department and put them up in Northern California and had them helping out where they needed to be. You know, that there's a huge problem. So everybody goes and runs and helps. That's how we work in America, right? We want to help our friends and our neighbors and our families. Well, when that happened, it messed up our lockouts so bad because those are the sheriffs that they sent there. Well, now in the meantime, we didn't have lockouts. So it was taking a tremendous amount of time. I can remember that it took 8 weeks to get a lockout date from the sheriff. From the time they received the writ to the time the lockout was scheduled, 8 weeks. It was ridiculous, okay? I think that we may see more of that, especially if we are inundating the courts with these evictions. I mean, some of these people are gonna wait until the night before the expiration date and then they'll pay the rent. They just wanted to make sure that we were following their rights. We're going to see a lot of challenges like that, but I have no doubt that the court system is going to get inundated as soon as people are able to evict, just because they're not going to be able to keep up with the amount that's going on. Statistically, when this first started, we were seeing in April, 97% of the state of California paid their rent. In May, 95% of all tenants in the state of California paid their rent. When August happened, and it was in the 90s the whole time until August happened. And then when August happened, we saw that dropped from the 90 percentile down to the 55 percentile. So it wasn't until August when we saw all that happen. I have my own analogy of why I think that happened that way, because it was the end of July when they stopped that additional COVID unemployment payment. Okay, so that happened in the end of July. Now August comes and rents. Now half of our tenants didn't pay the rent. They lost a huge portion of their income with that COVID payment. So that being said, that may make sense why we saw such a big decrease in August. Okay, hold on. I see more questions, so let me get to them.
65 days for an uncontested eviction. Oh.
How long? Wait.
Well, I was just seeing a note from Winter that said they're anticipating a delay of 65 days.
Would that be Winter at Fast Eviction Service?
I don't know. Winter can speak up. I'll mute myself because I don't have
I
the
see
knowledge.
that. The courts are saying it's going to be about 65 days for an uncontested eviction. So yes, she is joining us from Fast Eviction Service, and she helped, their whole office helps make sure that we all stay on the same page and we're getting pertinent information. That's why I love them so much. So she's saying that the courts are telling her it's going to be about 65 days for an uncontested eviction. Here is what I have to say about that. If the court's telling you it's going to be 65 days, how long do you really think it's going to be? Because I remember when they would tell us, oh, we'll just pop it right through the new system. And 6 months later, I evicted my tenants. And so it just depends. But the courts are saying about 65 days for an uncontested eviction. We'll see how long they can keep up with that.
Yeah, and it's about 95 days if they contest.
Okay, thank you, Winter.
You're welcome.
We like having you guys in our meetings because it actually helps us all understand things a little bit better. And I saw you sent a message earlier where you were talking about ex parte hearings. We're not required to go into ex parte anymore?
No, as of right now, they're saying that we don't have to ask for the judge's approval on it. We don't have to go through ex parte. If it's that big of an emergency, it should just go straight to unlawful detainer process.
Okay, so they are allowing you to file unlawful detainer process now.
October 5th.
Not until October 5th.
Because of the most of the moratoriums that are still up basically end at the end of this month. So that's putting us at the court at October 5th.
So their sunset clauses in the moratoriums end on September 31st. I believe I saw quite a bit of that ourselves. Just to help put into English what Winter and I are talking about very quickly is when they make a temporary law, which is a moratorium, and that's what that means, temporary law, they have to give it an expiration date, okay? So they did that when they built the temporary law. They give it a sunset clause. The sunset clause is another word for expiration date. So just so you guys get what we're trying to talk about. So she's saying the courts are telling her once they open after the 5th of October to do evictions, they should be looking about 65 days uncontested. And what did you say for contested, Winter?
About 90, and this is just up in the air. Okay, we don't really know yet, but
I understand.
That's what they're anticipating.
What court did you get that from? LA County, Riverside County? Help me.
They're all saying different things, but just the average is about 65 days.
Okay, perfect. That's great news. 65 is better than 6 months, you guys. Okay, hold on. I got more questions coming in. I'm sorry for asking something that you may have talked about previously. Girl, I'm good with that. Got online late. I almost did too. So do tenants have to prove to us that they actually cannot afford to pay rent during this pandemic? Yes, they do. And they could do that all the way up until the court trial. So we're asking them to provide that information to them now, or us now with that notice, especially if it was rents and we have 2 different dates we need to follow, you guys. One, maybe we'll call round 1 of COVID, and the second part we'll call round 2. Round one is from March of 2020 to August 31st of 2020. And then the second portion, which they're now having to pay 25% of the rent going forward, starting September 1st, all the way until January 31st of 2021. So we have two different areas here. We have that first one where that's a loan. They have 6 months to pay it back. Going forward, they have to pay us at least 25% of the rent monthly to avoid eviction proceedings, and they have to prove to us that they've been affected by COVID with financials and things of that nature. Can you start charging late fees? That is one of my questions to Fair Housing. When can we start charging late fees again? I'm going to find that out. I can definitely guarantee you that you cannot charge them from March through August of the year 2020. I will find out, and I will have that answer for you next week, if not sooner, on my website for charging late fees in September. I'm going to guess that they're still not going to let us charge a late fee. And just hear me out. If the tenant can only pay, and they're seriously dealing with financial hardship, and they can only pay 25% of the rent, why would the courts or the government or anybody for that matter allow us to then tag a late fee on them too? I don't think they're going to let us do that. Just saying. Okay, hang on. I'm still looking at questions and they're coming in. Can we start charging late fees September through January? Again, I don't know that yet. I don't know that we will be able to do that quite yet. As soon as I find that out, I will let you know. My guess is we're not going to be able to start charging late fees until February of 2021, but that's just my opinion. Are we able to ask, in fact, they received, unemployment or other assistance in the 15-day notice and in the court if they appear? Yes, actually, that's what the declaration is. So when you serve a 15-day notice, if it's monies that were owed from March of 2020 to August 31st of 2020, in that 15-day notice, we have to include the declaration that they can fill out and send back to us, and also the disclosures regarding the new law, which is AB 3088, that was implemented on September 1st. And starting September 1st, they owe 25% of the rent. When, I don't understand what you're asking, Paul. It says when you want to rent an, something unit to rent. Write that to me again, Paul, I missed it. Is a 75% from September to whenever has a date, you guys. It's January 31st of 2021. So it's not whenever, we have a date. It's going to have the same rules for the loan of March to August. I don't know. I wouldn't think so. Honestly, I wouldn't think so. I don't know how that's going to work out. Again, these are more questions that we're finding out, and it's a great question. If they only have to pay 25% of the rent from August to the end of the year into January, when is the rest of the 75% due? That's what I want to know, right? We need to get paid. We have mortgages to pay. So again, this is relatively new. I'm still working on getting all the answers, talking to legal counsel, talking to Fair Housing. I don't like to give you guys a system or a process and procedure unless I know that it doesn't have unopened loopholes behind it, if you will. I want to get with something that works, stick with it all the way through, and then spread that like wildfire, because I want to err on the side of caution and keep everybody safe. Let me see what else we have. Can we renew leases for commercial units? I don't see anything that's affecting this new bill having to do anything with commercial. I would say absolutely. On the bill, it said a landlord can go through civil court to get it. On the bill, it said the landlord can go to civil court to get what? That money judgment for the 75% of rent that's owed? Yes. So what they're telling you is you're going to have to evict them, because that's the only way you get a civil judgment is in eviction court, in civil court. Small claims court, you may be able to get that money, but from what I understand, small claims court's not going anything after rent during the COVID pandemic. Hang on, I see another question. Okay, so 75%, right? I can't answer that. I don't know yet. I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off since Friday, trying to figure all this out because I knew you guys were going to ask me all these questions. And I have the majority of the answers. I just want to implement a process and procedure that's solid, that has flow, and it's smooth, and we can say, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and this is how it's going to do from now going forward. Just keep everybody safe and out of lawsuits, because I hate them. What is the way you recommend to get comparable rents to rent your own unit? You can check on Zillow, is an easy way. You can also look at apartments.com and look, when you're doing market rents and trying to figure out what the market rent is, please do me this favor, because a lot of landlords don't see this and they end up in a problem. So hear me. If you're looking at a property that's $2,000 a month and you're getting $1,200 a month and you're like, ooh, my place is vacant, I want to bring it up to market value. Here's what I really need you to do. Look at what they're offering for the $2,000 a month. Do they have granite countertops? Do they have valet trash service? What are they getting for $2,000 a month? Because you can't take a building, okay, this is just me talking out loud, they can both be built in the same year and have the exact same floor plan. But if one has been completely updated with new cabinets, new countertops, hardwood floors, looks gorgeous, has the two-tone paint everybody's after, and they're charging $2,000, you can't put your $1,200 one with the cabinets in it from 1960 and the paint that hasn't been done in 10 years and expect to get $2,000. That's not how that works. You're gonna have to spend quite a bit of money in order to bring that up to market value so that you can get apples for apples. So just keep that in mind when you see somebody else's rents. What are they including in there? Do they have valet trash service? Does this include water? Do they get free electricity? I mean, start looking at what all does that include. Is my house look like this house? Do we have the same amenities? Are we offering the same service? So that'll help you put it. Don't just look at 3-bedroom, 2-bath, $2,000, that's how much I'm charging. You may find your unit extremely difficult to rent, number one. You may find, number two, that the person that rents your unit knows exactly that you don't know what you're doing by charging that inflated rent, and they're gonna now take advantage of you. So just be mindful. Sometimes criminals think in weird ways. Please clarify again exactly in what situations we can serve a 3-day notice to perform or quit, or can we? Yes, absolutely, you can serve a 3-day notice to perform or quit. It's, can you evict on it? So they gave us 4 new reasons why we can evict under this new 3088, and that would be failure to allow entry, they're a nuisance on the property, house needs to be remodeled due to health and safety reasons, and then the non-payment of rent and non-compliance with the financials and proving the declaration, basically stating that they've been affected by COVID and how. So lots, how serious of a nuisance? I would say that's up to your legal counsel, okay? If somebody's just annoying and they're playing music loud, I'm gonna guess that that's not gonna fly too well. If you got somebody that's destroying the property, smashing windows, that's a nuisance, it's a hazard, it's damaging property, I'm sure that that will go much better. So my opinion to you is to contact your law firm and ask them. And when you call them, you guys, don't tell them the whole backstory of how this all happened unless they start asking and digging. Tell them, look, my tenant is going around knocking on other people's doors asking them if they have COVID. He does it every Friday and he's driving the residents crazy. Is that enough of a nuisance for me to get an eviction during this pandemic? So in other words, simplify your question when you call your law firm. Again, sometimes they don't have time to listen to the whole backstory. I personally like the whole backstory. It helps me understand exactly where you're coming from, but know that when you call your legal counsel, we need to simplify what we're trying to ask them so that they can help the rest of us. We all are trying to call them right now. You know, we're not alone. Hang on. So if tenants at a single family residence have a lease and it's expiring, do we have to keep them as tenants or can we ask them to vacate? Currently, we have an order to shelter in place. Until that order to shelter in place is lifted, we can't terminate tenancy unless we have legal recourse to do so. Personally, if it were me, I would keep them there on a month-to-month until the time arises, and then I would give them their notice to vacate of a 30 or a 60-day notice, depending on how long they've been there, and handle it that way. Just because, and I know you guys are going to shoot me for saying this, we still have not heard from the Department of Fair Housing on when is a reasonable amount of time to terminate the tenancy after a global pandemic and an order to shelter in place from our government and it not be considered retaliatory. We don't know. They haven't told us. You can call them and ask them today and let me know if you get an answer, but so far I've been unsuccessful in getting an answer out of Fair Housing. And the reason that I'm pressing that so much has to do with our history in California. And I'll give you an example. Your tenant calls code enforcement and reports that one of the numbers is hanging off of his unit. It's a violation, okay? So now you have a violation of code enforcement. You have to fix that. You also can't terminate their tenancy for 6 months or it's considered retaliation or a retaliatory eviction. What do you think a global pandemic is gonna do? Don't know. Don't want to find out the hard way. Don't want to piss off all these people, especially Fair Housing. So it's better right now just to err on the side of caution. You can call and ask your legal counsel and see if you can get a solid answer out of them. My opinion is until the order to shelter in place is lifted, the eviction moratorium is lifted, pretty much our hands are tied. And like Winter was saying earlier, we're still on an eviction moratorium in most counties till the end of September. Does the Trump moratorium overrule California rules? It can, it just depends on how it's written. It depends. So we're the last man on the totem pole. Above us is our city, above them is the county, above them is the state, above them becomes the federal government and Trump. So it just depends on what verbiage he's using and how that's implemented. I'm probably not the best person to ask that particular question to, but I will find an answer for you and let you know next week, or you can shoot me out an email. I'd be more than happy to help you. Anybody have anything else? Oh, wait, we got another one coming in. It's from Miss Lee. Let's see what she needs. What can I do if I still have a 12-month lease and the tenant refuses to renew? If the tenant refuses to renew the lease contract, 9 times out of 10, it automatically rolls over into a month-to-month. And I learned something at the law firm, okay? Once your lease term expires, it is a holdover tenant until something happens. Example. You don't terminate the tenancy, they keep living there, they keep paying you the rent. That's called a holdover, okay? So basically, the rules of your lease still apply, but the term is over. The time has expired, but now you're just on a month-to-month and those rules still apply. So don't throw away your lease, okay? Your lease is still good, those rules are still good, the time is expired and now you're on a month-to-month. As long as they keep paying you rent and you don't serve them the 30-day, the 90-day notice, whatever it is that we need to terminate tenancy, then the tenancy just continues. It's called a holdover tenancy. I hope that answered your question. In other words, they don't have to be in a contract for time in order to have a contract that has teeth. Your original rental agreement was for a term of time. Although the time has expired, those rules still apply. They still have to pay the rent on this day. Their late fee is still this much. This is about their occupants. This is about the rules and regulations and their security. All of that still applies. It's just the time is expired. So they stayed there their year and now they're just on a month-to-month is how that usually works. And you can check the verbiage in your lease contract itself. Usually it'll say it expires on such and such date unless, and you'll see the unless there, tenancy continues. And that's what they mean by the tenancy continues. Hold on, I see another question coming in. Let me see if I can grab that one. Who can help us update your management contracts? Fast Eviction Service most definitely can help you update your management contract and agreement. I'd be more than happy to look at it for you and tell you different things that you can implement into your contract, and then have your legal counsel look it over before you start implementing it in your business. But I do have ideas and suggestions, not only to help you with that, but some other things that we do that end up being costly to us. And we're not thinking about ways that we could be recuperating that money through our management contract. So by all means, send me out an email. I'd be more than happy to help assist you and point you in the right direction as well. And then I saw another question come through. Let me check this. Can I terminate a tenant if they refuse to renew for another 12-month term? Ugh. Is this in the city of Los Angeles? Because I believe that AB 1482 might have something in there in regards to them refusing to sign a new contract for term. That would be just to terminate the tenancy and you not have to pay relocation fees. As far as AB 1482 goes, as far as whatever, you're in Orange County. Orange County loves landlords, not tenants, okay? Just saying. I believe when they originally wrote the moratoriums for the COVID rent loan, and the city of Los Angeles said, we're giving them a year, and the county said, we're giving them 6 months. I'm 90% sure that Orange County said, we'll give them 24 hours. I like them. So you probably have a little bit more protections as far as municipalities go with OC. I would say not to terminate tenancy during this pandemic until these orders are lifted, just to be safe. And you can always call Fair Housing and ask them these questions as well and see what they say, because we definitely don't want to have them on our bad side. Okay, I got one more question. Hang on. Our tenant reported us for a code violation. Okay. If we are approved by HCIDLA, okay, in February of 2020 for an owner move-in eviction, does the 6-month ban on evictions apply due to fair housing retaliation? I think my question would become, did you start the process back in February when you were approved for the owner move-in? And I'm 90% sure you can still move forward with that. This is a question for your legal counsel. And just so you guys know, Fast Eviction Service does offer free legal over the phone all the time. So when you have a legal question like that, you can call them and ask them. They give you the answer, and there you go. They don't charge you a dime. They're great. I love them. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes.
We have a tenant right now that is scheduled to vacate the property next week because she's been affected by COVID and she's not able to pay the rent. How do we proceed to collect the rent, that the past due rent that she owes? Do we have to wait till February, or can we just set up a payment plan with her once she vacates the premises?
You can set up a payment plan with her once she vacates the premises without wait. But here's me talking to you. If she's vacating because of COVID, she doesn't have money, right? That's why she can't pay the rent, so she's moving out? I'm asking.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
But she's the one that brought it. She's the one that wants to set up a payment plan because she doesn't want it for us to report it to the credit bureaus.
Then run with that, honey.
Okay.
Run with that. Tell her, okay, no problem. We'll go ahead and do this as agreed. Okay. The reality is, once she's out of the property, your recourse is small claims court. Okay. You with me? So once she vacates the unit, you can go to small claims court and file a lawsuit against her on the money that's owed and get a money judgment so that you can garnish her wages. Do you have a written contract with her, or do you have an oral agreement with her as far as the rental?
The rental, it's a written rental agreement.
Okay, I can tell you fact for fact that on a written rental agreement, your statute of limitations is 4 years. Okay? So at 3 years and 11 months after she vacates, you could still go file small claims against her 3 years and 11 months later, but not 4 years and 1 day later. In other words, what I'm trying to say to you is maybe now isn't the best time to be involved in the court system to get this money judgment against somebody that's vacating anyway. And if she can't pay her rent, how's she going to pay you the money judgment? I'm just saying, it's just me thinking out loud. So maybe it makes more sense to try to make an arrangement with her and get it collected that way. And then if she defaults, and I'm just giving you an example, I'd wait until February to file the case with small claims in order to get that money judgment. Make sense? Sometimes when people are bleeding, it doesn't make sense to pound on them. We kind of want to wait for them to recover and then get them. Okay? I hope that helped. And then I saw some more questions come through. Let me see. Somebody already emailed me. They want the flow chart. Absolutely, Joy. Would you be able to post the flow chart on my website? I will ask Fast Evictions if I can do that. I work with them, not for them. I don't think they'd have a problem with that, but I just want to verify with them that it's okay that I do that before I do it, because I don't want to get in any trouble with anybody. Will Senate Bill 1410 still going to pass for the tax credit thing? I'm not sure yet. Don't know what that looks like. And AB 1436 is no more. Absolutely correct. That fell on its face at the House of the Senate. But Senate Bill 1410, I'm going to have to look at that for that tax credit thing, how that's coming along, how that's playing out. I'm not sure. I will tell you guys right now, do everything you can and tell everybody you can to vote no on Prop 21. That is everything that we won, and I know it doesn't seem like we won anything, but in AB 1482, when they were determining how much rents we were going to be able to increase a year and how we were going to do this and how we did that, when they were implementing all that, we actually won some stuff. We won vacancy decontrol. They didn't pass that in AB 1482. Just to explain to you what vacancy decontrol is let's say that you have a unit that's renting at $600 a month and the tenant moves out. Now, the tenant's gone and you fixed it up and you're going to put it back on the market. There's no vacancy decontrol. So you can bring that up to market value, okay? Prop 21 wants to take that away from us. They want to tell us that after somebody vacates, even if they live there 30 years and their rent's $400, we can only bring it up the allotted amount, which is the 5% plus the CPI for the area. So they're also trying to change, just so everybody understands, especially property managers that manage single family homes, please pay attention because this is important. They're trying to implement title again. We know that under AB 1482, if you hold title as an individual, as a married couple, an individual couple in person's name, or in a family trust, a living trust, or an LLC that does not have a corporate office affiliated to the LLC, we're exempt from rent control. They're trying to take that away. They're trying to say, unless you're a mom and pop and the house is listed in an individual's name, you have rent control. So what they're trying to do is add family trusts, living trusts, and LLCs to be forced to have AB 1482 as well. And that's also in Prop 21. So we want to tell everybody we know, vote no on Prop 21. If you're even talking to tenants about it, I would explain it to this because this isn't what's being talked about, but it needs to be. How many of us have dealt with corporate America in the big 1,500 unit apartment complex and their criteria and their qualifications in order to rent there? Somebody applies, they don't meet their criteria, they're denied. Where do they go? They usually go find a mom and pop that'll work with them on their credit, that'll work with them on their deposit, that'll work with them on this, work with them on that. What they're doing is they're taking that away from the tenants. They're taking away the people that are willing to work with them. So they're making it harder for tenants without explaining it to them that way. Because where are they going to live? Because if corporate America comes and buys all these buildings because us with LLCs and family trusts don't want to deal with it, and we're like, we're done, had enough, we're selling, we're out. Who's going to buy those? More mom and pops? Investors in corporate America? I always tell tenants, only if you can meet their criteria will you be their tenant. Where are you going to live? So it's scary for tenants too. They're just not portraying it in a manner that makes tenants think about that kind of stuff. I love you too, Joy. Who do you recommend for us to pay for to handle our small claims? I'll tell you right now, anybody can handle your small claims for you as far as legal counsel goes. Fast evictions, I want to say, is about $175. And for the $175, let me tell you what Fast Evict does. They file your case, they find your tenant, they serve your tenant, and they notify you of your court date. Okay, so for $175, they do all that part for you. They serve the tenant, find the tenant, notify you of the court date, file the paperwork with the court. Hit the easy button. Okay. So that's what I could tell you about fast evictions, being able to do that. Oh, I'm being corrected by Winter. The price for that is $250, and she's absolutely correct. I totally forgot that the courts increased their filing costs. So it's $250 for fast evict to do your small claims for you. Should we take props out of the trust just in case? Okay, so you're asking me for legal advice, and I have to be very careful because I'm a licensed real estate broker. So I got to be very careful. I'm not giving you any legal advice, but I will tell you this. Before you move how title is held, I would talk to your CPA. How is that going to affect your taxes? Because that's what you really want to know. How does it affect me here? Right? So that's definitely a question for your CPA that I would ask them. Whoever does your taxes, you want to talk to them about that before you go making changes, just because we want to be safe. Okay? Anybody have anything else for me? Anybody? I was asked a question about security deposits. Just because we're in a global pandemic, if your tenant moves out, you still are required by law to do your final disposition of security deposit within 21 days of them vacating, or doing an estimated within 21 days. And then the final, once you have the final receipt, you have 14 days from when you get the final receipt. But just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean you don't have to work, folks. So you still have to do your security deposit disposition within the 21 days in order to be in compliance with the law. Okay, I see another question, so bear with me. Do we need to file any paperwork for those new laws as long as people are paying me in the rent on time? No, you don't. But if they default, you need to notify them. If they have rents that haven't been paid from March to August, there is notifications that we do need to give them by the end of this month of what their rights are. Also, with them paying only 25% of the rent, and if they don't pay 25% of the rent, we can evict. With this new thing that's just out, be careful with that too, okay? And this is just me talking out loud. If you don't notify them what the rules are, how can you implement the rules? So you're gonna have to prove that you notified them of what those rules are before you've started an eviction. Otherwise, that's going to be a problem for you. And most likely you will have to reboot, reload, start over, and pay those funds again. So don't do that. We have till September 31st to notify them regarding rents that are owed. So maybe for this month, September, here we come. Today's the 2nd. I know the 5th is shortly behind, but maybe that's when we want to start moving all those things when we do the 15-day notice in September. Hang on, I'm seeing more questions. Just bear with me. If they move in extra people to a unit, are we allowed to increase the rent for additional tenants not mentioned in the contract? What if they are children they're fostering during family issues? I would talk to your legal counsel about that, and I'm being very honest with you. There's a few new laws that slipped in, okay? I don't know if you're aware of them, but it has to do with the homelessness initiative law. So if a tenant knows of someone that's on the verge of becoming homeless, they can bring them in their unit for up to 12 months with no repercussions. So we're not able to increase the rent, but those tenants that are staying there so that they're not homeless also cannot become a nuisance. If they become a nuisance, then we can evict. So a couple moving parts there as far as that goes. At this time, for unauthorized additional occupants, I would notate it, I would document it, and I would talk to your legal counsel about what you can and can't do based on the city that you're in. Can I raise a security deposit during COVID for AB 1482 exempt property if I do a huge property improvement? What is the notice period for that notice? Okay. If you do a huge renovation, whatever, you want a higher security deposit. Here's what I can tell you about security deposits hand down. In the state of California, we can ask for double the rent on a vacant unit and triple the rent on a fully furnished unit. Not a dime more, okay? So if you have a unit that's $1,000 a month, and I always use the $1,000 a month thing because my blonde brain can do the math quickly. So just so you know, that's why I picked that number. If you have a unit that's $1,000 a month, you can ask, and it's unfurnished, you can ask for up to a $2,000 security deposit on an unfurnished unit. Now that includes deposits, all deposits, keys deposits, pet deposits. If you're calling it deposit, lump it all together and call it a deposit, because then you can allocate it however you want. Once you define the deposit, like for keys or for a pet, you can only use that money for that. So if the pet doesn't do any damage, but the tenant puts instant cement down the garbage disposal, you still have to send them that $500 pet deposit you took because the pet didn't cause any damage. So don't define the deposit, just call it a deposit. An additional deposit will be required, an additional deposit. So don't define what the deposit's for, lump it all together and call it a deposit. You can't go over the state's rules, which is 2 times on a vacant unit or 3 times on a fully furnished. That being said, okay, if you're in a rent control city where you have rent control, you can only raise the deposit as much as you can raise the rent. Example, let's say you can only raise the rent 7.25% annually, then you can only raise the deposit 7.25% annually. Make sense? Okay. So for those of you that are raising rents in rent control areas, make sure you're raising your deposits with them, because 10 years from now, you may find that you just don't have enough money in that account. Something to think about. And then as far as raising a deposit right now, I would wait until your legal counsel says that you can go ahead and raise deposits. With the whole shelter in place, it just makes things a wee bit cattywampus, and I'd rather have you err on the side of caution than be involved in a costly lawsuit. Do we need to add them to the lease? Once you add those unauthorized occupants to the lease, they become tenants. Okay, so you might be better off not adding them to the contract and leaving them that way. It may be more beneficial for you in the future. We have just completed an earthquake retrofit that the city of LA requires. Yes, in that retrofit, the improvement, we are permitted to do a pass-through. Is that right now or on hold? The city approved the pass-through. If they did, you can go ahead and move through it. If the city approved that pass-through, you can move through it, absolutely. Because they didn't approve it this year, they approved it last year. It took them that long to get it done, right? Anybody have anything else for me? I know you guys need to go back to work. Hold on, don't get more questions. Is Section 8 still paying during this time? They should be, yes. It is starting to sound more tempting to advertise for Section 8 tenants. I have my own personal opinion on that, and I'll tell you that in just a minute. Just let me read the next question. Is the official or legal, don't ask me a legal question, guys, way of notifying the tenants of the new law and the other is still, so you want to know how you need to inform the tenants of the laws? The same way you serve a notice. You either need to do it personal service, sub-service, or post and mail. Fill out a proof of service, write on the proof of service what you gave them. If you gave them the disclosures for September, blah, 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 attach that to it and put it in your file. It's that proof of service that saves you in a courtroom. Nobody needs to see that proof of service but your attorney and the judge. So it's not something you give the tenant, that is your document, not theirs. It's to protect you, not them. So you hold on to those proof of services. Tenants should never see one filled out. It shouldn't be filled out and put on their door. They don't get the proof of service. That's your document that tells the court, for penalty of perjury, you're willing to go to jail. If you're lying, so you know you're not, but you did this, you served this paper on this day at this time, and this is how you did it. That's the court recognized document for that, is the proof of service. So proof of service is how you want to serve notice. And I know I was going to go back to something, but my little blonde brain forgot what it was. Is Section 8 still paying during COVID? Okay. So when you deal with federally funded programs like Section 8, you deal with federal rules. So when it comes time to terminate tenancy, you have to do it a different way, okay? If you don't hold up your end of the bargain with Section 8, they can stop paying their portion until you correct whatever needs to be done at the property. That can go for carpet cleaning, just so you know. Section 8 requires on their annual inspection that the carpets be cleaned annually. I think the tenant should pay for that. It's not my filth, it's cleaning. You guys with me? So Section 8 may sound so great right now, but just know it's a cloud that doesn't always have silver lining. It can be worse. I mean, if the federal moratorium's in place and Trump says, okay, federally we have a moratorium, that now affects every Section 8 property because it's federally funded. Makes sense? So with that being said, you may want to rethink that just a little bit. I get what you're saying, but just a little bit. I do know of a lot of people right now that are still looking for places to live. They're good tenants, they're genuine tenants, and we don't seem to have issues. So do your screening. Don't fear somebody just because COVID's going on. Make sure that you get that taken care of and you should be fine. Okay? Anybody else, or I'm going to end this for today, and I will see you guys all next week. I will be in, where will I be? I will be in Cape May, New Jersey next week. Hopefully we'll be live on the dock from the ocean, so we get to see all that going on. If you guys need anything, have any questions, email me, call me. You guys all know how to hunt me down. Keep in mind that you need to really hold on tight to your legal counsel. And I know that for quite some time, they haven't been working. They've had no income. We haven't had them doing notices for us or helping us with this. They need to eat too, you guys, just so you know. So now that we're able to utilize them a little bit more, we may want to make sure that we take good care of our law firms because they are the ones that stand next to us in a court of law and help us. Hang on, I got a few more questions coming in and then I'm going to end it. Oh, I'm getting thank you, you guys. I couldn't do this without you. Was your flying experience good? Did I stay safe? I stayed extremely safe. Just so you know, I flew out here in June. I've been out here for 3 months, give or take. And the planes were not crowded. My first flight was from Ontario Airport to Phoenix, and they had the plane fully loaded. It was full of people. My next flight was from Phoenix to Philadelphia, and it was every other seat, every other row. So they did stagger on the long flight. On that short flight, I know another flight was canceled. A bunch of people hopped on. So if you're traveling, I wouldn't worry too much about being afraid. They are wiping everything down. They're using the fog in between flights. I mean, you can see them shooting the fog in there. So, and then I wiped everything down where I was going to sit anyway, just as a precautionary measure. I didn't want to bring anybody illness was my thing. So you guys be safe, wash your hands, know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And if you need me for anything else, please feel free to give me a call or shoot me out an email. Thanks so much. And I'll see you guys next week. Yay. Bye.